You're listening to Dene Michael here on True Radio, the home of proper good music and proper good interviews. And this week, we're very, very fortunate to have a wonderful record producer for many, many stars, and it's Stuart Epps. Hiya, Stuart.
Howdy. Hello. How are you doing?
Still there. Are you enjoying this music?
I am. I love great music.
Well, we're known for proper good music, you see.
Yeah, that's good.
So proper good music is what you're used to doing, and you got to work with the fabulous John Lennon.
Well, you say that. I didn't really work with him in a production sense. Where I met John was that, as I was telling you earlier, that I was looking after Kiki D, and Kiki went on tour with Elton as support. And we happened to be in New York at Madison Square Gardens. And the story is, the way the story goes is that Elton and John had done this duet, Whatever Gets You Through the Night. And at the time, John wasn't touring or anything, but Elton, who's always touring, said, look, if this gets to #1, I want you to come with me and perform it on stage with me. So I think John probably thought there's very little chance of that happening. So he agreed to do it. Anyway, years passed, and sure enough, it gets to #1. We're at Madison Square Gardens. Elton says to John, now you promised to come and play. So next minute, John's with us on the plane before we hit New York, and he's very great. He's quite shy actually, and we're all getting on very well. And because I'm a terrible groupie, when we got to Madison Square, I was following John all over the place. And there is a short story that goes with it, because I ended up in the dressing room with him, and his girlfriend at the time was May Pang.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And we're the three of us. We're only the three of us in the dressing room, and then there's a knock on the door. And being the manager type, I went to open the door, and as I opened the door, I can see that's Yoko Ono standing there.
My goodness.
So I'm thinking, oh my God, there's going to be trouble here, because I don't know what's going on. I'm thinking maybe she just caught him with a new girlfriend.
Yeah.
So I only sort of opened the door a little bit. I wasn't going to open it completely. But anyway, fact is, there was a chap behind her who was a friend of mine and friend of Elton's, and he's giving it the thumbs up. So I think, well, it must be okay. So I let her in, and sure enough, the three of them are very, friendly. I found out afterwards she was actually Yoko's secretary. Have to start again.
No,
really.
we can.
So the fact is that Elton had been going down a storm as usual on stage. I went out front to see how it was going to go. John comes on stage. In fact, before I went out, I was at the bottom of the stairs with John Lennon before he went on the stage, and he was crapping himself, to be honest. He was very nervous. And I'm thinking, well, what is he nervous about? Everything's going to be great. He's a Beatle, I think. So, but that's how he is. He hadn't been on stage for a long time. Anyway, I run out front. He hits the top of the stairs. The place goes absolutely wild, and he goes down an absolute storm. And for me, it was amazing. It was just like seeing the Beatles, even though there was only John up there on stage. So a lot of people say it's one of the greatest shows of all time.
How many people would have been there, Stuart?
I think Madison Square it's a good question. I think it's 10,000, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But amazingly, it was 74, and there's very little, if there's hardly any footage of that show.
Yeah.
Elton wasn't recording it, which is crazy, really, when you think about it. And I think there's just a few seconds someone had some sort of recording of it. I mean, there's an analog, there's an audio recording of it because it came out as an EP.
Yeah.
But it was never actually filmed. But that's the only time when I met John.
Well,
so
it was a fantastic experience. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So we'll talk now about Wheeler End Studios. You were involved with that. I don't know if you're still there or.
I am still here.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, what? The studio is still there?
Yeah.
No, the studio is long gone.
Oh, is that right?
What happened there was that I had to find another studio. Chris Rea had taken over the mill, and I had the equipment, and I really needed somewhere to go. And I found out that Alvin Lee, the guitarist from 10 Years After, had sort of fled from his house. And so I went along there and met with his wife. And he'd just left the studio, and the studio was magnificent. It was a great studio. really big sort of room and very nicely decorated and the whole bit. So I decided that this would make a great studio to take over, and I put my equipment in it. And although it wasn't a commercial studio at the time, I set it up as a commercial studio. And it was the time of Britpop in the UK. So I was, I was very keen to get my usual clients in there, Bill Wyman and Kiki D and these people. But I was really keen also to get some new bands in. And actually a friend of the studio owner knew Paul Weller. And Paul came in, and I did some work with Paul, which went very well. And then he told some friends of his, and one of the friends was Noel Gallagher.
Right.
So I then got a call from Oasis office saying they wanted to book the studio. And I was I was flabbergasted, really, because they were probably the biggest Britpop band that you could imagine. So I was very happy with that. Anyway, then Noel shows up with every guitar I've ever seen, every amplifier I've ever seen, tons of equipment, Mellotrons and everything else. And he wasn't that friendly, I'll be honest. I'm sure he's not listening. He might be, but hopefully he'll forgive me. He wasn't the most friendly person on the planet. But anyway, we started working, and he's certainly incredibly talented. He was doing everything himself. He was on his own, playing piano, playing drums, playing guitar, singing, and it was all prior to this album, On the Shoulders of Giants, that we were doing. Anyway, we'd only been working a few days, and he suddenly says, right, pack it up. We're all packing up. He said, Liam's found out we're here, and he'll probably come down and trash the place, so we better leave before he arrives.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I thought, well, that's nice. They booked in him for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're starting to pack the gear away. As they're in the middle of it, Liam shows up, and he walks in, and he's looking around, and he says, wow, top this and top that. And yeah, he says, I love this place. He said, it looks like Jimi Hendrix's bedroom here. And I always wondered how he knew that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I tell you what, he was absolutely superb. We got on like a house on fire straight away. He was playing me new songs, and he's a great guy. He's very, very friendly, much more friendly, to be honest, than Noel was.
Yeah.
And then the two of them were having a ball. They had some bit of wine, and we had a great time, actually. And I've seen Liam since. He's always very nice, and I've got a lot of respect for him as well, because let's face it, when Oasis kind of packed in, and Noel was definitely the producer and the manufacturing that sound, he had to find his own sound, and I think that he's done that brilliantly well, and his stuff is his solo stuff is great.
It is. I believe. Yeah, I watched him on. I think it was one of the talk shows he was on a few weeks ago, and he was absolutely fantastic. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, he is totally brilliant.
Yeah.
So it was all good, and it was a pleasure to work with him. And Wheeler End, I did do more recordings. Well, actually, I worked with Mark Owen there as well.
No, from Take That. Yeah.
And one artist that you haven't mentioned is Robbie Williams, who. In fact, it was weird because Liam was going out with a certain girl at the time, and then Robbie ended up going out with the same one, and they didn't all meet up at Wheeler End, but they met up individually, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But Robbie, I sang with Robbie. I did some backing vocals with him. He was just superb. He was brilliant.
Yeah. What a talent. Talking about Robbie and.
Absolutely. Well, it was, at the time that Robbie was in, they had this album out called Life Through a Lens, which was doing very badly, actually. They'd already put one or two singles out. It sold about 20,000, and Chris Briggs, the head of the company, said it's kind of died a death. But they were going to release one more single off of it, and that was Angels.
Angels are one of the biggest songs ever.
Yeah, and while I was in the studio, Robbie went off to do Top of the Pops, and obviously, Angels took off, and that was it.
Yeah.
So, he was a pleasure to work with. I only worked with him the one time.
Yeah.
But and Wheeler End was a great studio for a while there. Liam liked it. Not Liam. Noel liked the studio so much he actually took it over after me.
All right.
So, but then I moved, because actually Wheeler End is in a village called Wheeler End, which is near High Wycombe. And I came back to Cookham then, and where I sort of been here all those years, and set up a studio here in the High Street again, and enjoying being back in Cookham, to be honest.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, what
Yeah,
we'll do, Stuart, we'll take another break here and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what's going to happen in the future with you and all your plans and everything else that goes with it. So, Stuart,
absolutely.